Well, hello and welcome to the DIY Zen Rock Garden Craft as part of the 2021 Book to Action. And this year, the 20 for 2021, the book is George Takei's They Called Us Enemy, which is a graphic novel which talks about his experience when his family was moved from their home to an internment camp during World War II. And this is a shared experience with many, many Japanese Americans. And as we find out through a lot of our programs in our book to action this year through the library, not just Japanese Americans. And so we've had some very interesting speakers talking about a lot of experiences from German Americans, Germans, Italian Americans, and this is the prompt for all of this is They Called Us Enemy. So we have these at the library for you to check out and read, and kind of branch out from there into a lot of different subject matter. Today, the subject matter is Zen rock gardens. We're talking about a feature of Japanese culture because the book was our prompt, and we are talking about a little bit of DIY, and we're keeping it really simple, maybe real Zen. So we talk about Zen Buddhism as now, I am not an expert on this, so I'm going to give you what I have learned, and I'm sure it is a deep, deep subject. So as you want to learn more, there are many resources out there, including at your library. But Zen Buddhism started, its genesis was in India, moved to China from there, and then moved to Japan. From China, we have in the 13th century, the Japanese monk Dogen brought what was called Soto Zen to Japan. And then these rock gardens that we're going to be working on and building today, they started in 14th century Japan, which was the Muromachi period. And it is said that Muso Soseki, who was a Zen monk, kind of codified this rock garden. And they're also called dry rock gardens or dry gardens because a lot of gardens also have water features in them. And this was in contrast to that. It didn't have any ponds or pools or rivers. It was dry. And it became this landscaping technique that was starting to repeat itself in that era. And there's a lot of philosophy about the gardens and what they mean. And one idea is that they are kind of an abstract representation of the whole world. And we can kind of get into that when we start working on ours. And even the act of creating the garden and working with the garden can be a meditation unto itself, which is kind of what we're doing today. And that's kind of one of the central tenets, to my understanding, of Zen, which is meditation as a means to place us in the moment. So we are experiencing the now without the distractions of thought and analysis. So our garden can kind of help us with that. So this is a DIY, which means you're going to do with what you've got. And that means it's very flexible, and we can do it to whatever level of complexity you want. We have sand at the Solvang Library, so stop on by for some sand if you don't have any sand. But everything else is something that you can bring from things you find around the house or around the apartment or where you live or a friend's place. And so just some examples, random things I found. Here's a glass bowl that I had spray painted. So imagine we could fill this with sand and transform this, and we'll see more of what that means. It can be something as simple as an old Tupperware lid. As long as it's deep enough to hold some sand, it's really all we need. And the tools that we need, besides the sand, we can keep it really simple. Imagine we've got our rake and our shovel, and then we kind of shrink ourselves down into using these. So that's just to show that you can use what you have at hand. Be creative. It makes us look at what's around with a new perspective, and it makes us look at forks and spoons with a new perspective, because then we can shrink ourselves down and imagine what that might be like. So I will show you the one that I started, and we will finish it together. I began with some scrap from my workshop, and I built a tray. So it's got 4 sides, some molding, foam pads so it doesn't hurt the furniture, little spray paint, and it's deep enough that it should hold some sand. So we start with that. And then another feature of these dry gardens, the one that we most associate is rocks. There can also be moss or small plants. It's not a big plant kind of garden, but the plants are sometimes there to kind of accentuate the dry elements. So I have rocks that I have found. This is a rock that I dug out of a big trench next to my house when we had a plumbing problem, and it spent a lot of time and sweat. So this rock is significant to me and the work that I put in. And these are 2 pretty looking rocks. Where are they? There are they, that I found by the Truckee River in California. So thought those would be nice. So here we have some rocks. And then some sand, right? It's not complicated. And as we're doing this, it's part of the meditation. So we use our senses. We're in the moment. I'm listening to what the sand sounds like as it's hitting the tray. I can smell the dust. And then I can get my fingers in there and move it around and start to see this dry landscape forming. As you can see yourself, this is not a complicated craft. And if you're doing it with the little ones, they would have an opportunity to work with this too, have an opportunity to get their hands in. They might not understand all the features that we're working with here, but a little bit of it is okay, just to show that it signifies to you is part of the importance. All right, so now that we have our sand in, and we can kind of see our landscape taking shape. Let me give us a little better view there. Just an idea. So then we take our tools and we start to create this landscape. Now, I was in the shop and I used some pieces of our tree and some brad nails and things. So I made a little rake and a little shovel. And so now I can use these tools to move this sand. And I have kind of rocky sand here, but I think that adds to it. And again, we're looking at the experience of working with this. Listening to it, smoothing it, and a lot of the rock gardens, as we'll see and we'll work with our rake, it's called a dry garden, but it almost looks wet. And you can see this amazing transformation where this smooth sand, which I'm doing my best here, using ripples around the rocks, the larger features. There we go. So we're done with our shovel. Now we can get in with our rake. So the ripples around these rocks, let's see if we can get some detail. This might be hard to see, but these ripples make it seem as if there's water flow around the features, and it turns this dry space into this kind of almost surreal, wet environment where you don't imagine that it would be wet. So it's just an amazing opportunity to perceive something a little bit differently. So I have a lot of aggregate in my sand here, so it might be confusing the image a little bit, but I think this is where we can really see it the most. And again, I'm talking to you, so I'm not completely in the moment, but when you're working on this, or when I'm working on this later, I can sit and merely experience this and use this as my meditation. All right, so that gives you a general idea. I think we can see it now in here from that top view that we have some of those lines. I'm sorry that the detail isn't that defined in this space, but it's just working with what we have, and that's part of the fun of it too, is we're working with what we have. Even the experience of building your tray, if you want to get out into the shop and use tools, even that is a meditation, because as we know, working with tools, you need to be safe, so you need to be focused. So it's a similar kind of thing. So we can bring that mentality with us, and we can kind of connect to that real meditative space that the serious monks of this practice would work on. And we're not doing it to that extent, obviously, but we can kind of see a little bit of what it is that they're doing, and we can find our own private space. We can create our own private space for our own little rock garden meditation. And then when it's complete, we can smooth it back out again and start over. Or you can leave it when you find it, you get it to the place where you want it, leave it that way. I think, change is an interesting feature of it, and it's something that we can continue to work on. From a viewer, did I make the little rake? Oh, thank you for the question. Let's see. This is a twig from a tree in my front yard. This is a little scrap of, I think it's walnut that I had in my shop. So I drilled holes through the top, and I pushed these nails. These are finished. They're like little brad nails. They're copper coated. I think they might be for like a roofing or trim material. So I pushed them through. They were a little loose, so I glued them in, and then I glued the twig handle to the front little piece of walnut. So that's how I made that. Yeah, it was relatively simple, and it's pretty rustic, which I like. But it was all just using things that I found around my yard and in my shop. A lot of scrap material. So that's how I built the little rake. Thank you for asking. It's again, that was part of the meditation too, because working with something this small, there was a lot of opportunities for this thing to break. So I had to really focus. So not a lot of extra thought, just focus on this and the moment. All right. I think we were talking about change, and thank you for that question. And I think that kind of covers a DIY Zen rock garden. I think it's really kind of what you do with it from there. And we would love to see what you all do with it. So I can't help but do this now. If you make one, please send us a picture, email it to us, Solvang Library at cityofgalita.org. We'd love to see your images of what you guys come up with, what materials you wind up using. If you make your own tools, if you wind up using a fork and a spoon, you can see that just as easily, you can use this, and it doesn't really matter, how you're doing it. As long as you're doing it, it creates its own meaning. So the fork works just fine. So definitely let us know. Let us know if you're making them. We would love to see what you're doing, and we would love to hear about your experience, what you learned, what happened that you weren't expecting. I know that for myself, I was not expecting it to be as kind of tactile to make me want to keep coming back. I thought, I might kind of get the pattern and then it's done. But no, once you kind of get it in there, you see that now you kind of want to smooth it out again and do another one. So that's one of the things that I've discovered, and I'm enjoying this. I hope you get some enjoyment out of the one that you guys make. You will probably find me here with this for the next maybe half hour, 45 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'll be here doing this. And I hope you guys give this a shot. Give it a shot. Let us know how it goes. And thank you for joining us for this very simple but deep DIY of the Zen Rock Garden as tied to the book to action, as you can see in the corner. And book to action 2021. And we have a lot more speakers for the next 2 Saturdays at 2 p.m. There will be live speakers as tied to, again, coming from the book to action for George Takei's They Called Us Enemy. That's, you see it on your screen there. That's the next one. And then there is going to be another one after that as well. And there will be movie presentations beyond that and other speakers. So there's plenty coming up, exploring a lot of aspects from the book, from the story, and from the world that it came from. So there's a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of good archived stuff too. There are interviews with the woman who illustrated the book. I believe I'm sorry, her name is Harmony Becker. There's a great interview with her as well. A lot of great insight into the incredibly beautiful art that she's created here. So a lot of stuff, a lot of aspects, and a lot of things to learn, different, all kinds of age levels too. It's important subject matter, so we can all kind of take a look into it and grow from this history. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me for our rock garden, and thank you all very much. Thank you. And we will see you at the library soon, and we will see you online. And I hope you are all well, being kind to yourselves and being kind to others. And take care. I am signing off, and we will see you next time.